Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of RAU'S IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates.
Hello everyone and welcome to Daily News Simplified, your one-stop solution to detailed analysis of the current affairs which are published in the Delhi edition of Hindu newspaper. Articles dated 8th of July 2021 are listed on your screen, and the timestamping for these articles is given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article itself. Well, for this week's answer writing assignment from DNS video, this is your question. E-governance is an enabler and facilitator of good governance. Elucidate. You have to answer this question in about 150 words and submit your answer on ELEARN platform, where you can get a direct feedback from our evaluation team. So the first article for today's discussion is from page 7 of Delhi edition Hindu newspaper, and this article is actually talking about a very important thing which is known as sexual and reproductive health among women. The context of the article says that author has called for a better sexual and reproductive health right regime in India through multi-stakeholder approach. Now what does it mean? It means that all people across India should come forward to provide better sexual and reproductive health to the women in the country. Apart from this, there are many dimensions which this article actually covers. Those dimensions are, of course, your general studies paper 1, where women and population are important topics. In general studies 2 and 3, somehow health also becomes an important part of your syllabus. Hence, because of this relevance, we will cover the mains perspective of this topic today. So after going through this topic, you will learn a lot about the current sexual and reproductive health status in India and what are the basic causes and way forward when it comes to the women health and the population in the country like India. Now, what is our focus today? Well, we have 3 focus under this topic. First one being your important terms which were mentioned in the article. So we'll go through those definitions and important facts which can be helpful in your prelims as well. Then we will go through the India status on sexual and reproductive health. We will look into basic data set for this coverage. And finally, we will go into the analysis of the topic, that what are the current issues and what are the possible way forwards which we can go for challenging the negative social norms. So let us start with the important terms mentioned in the article. The first one, of course, being your total fertility rate. In normal term, it is also known as TFR. TFR in a specific year. So it is calculated on annual basis. Defined as total number of children that would be born to each woman if she were to live to the end of her childbearing years and give birth to the children in alignment with the prevailing age-specific fertility rates. Now let me simplify this for you. Specific year means annual. Children born means, let's say there's a woman X and she has 3 children. However, her age as of now is only 42 years old. As per the biology, she is eligible to get pregnant even now. So, in that sense, what is her TFR would be? It would be more than 3 because she still can get more children in their family. In that sense, if the age of X is, let's say, 80 years old, now going by the biological sense, we would say that she is beyond the age of bearing a child and she is out of that childbearing years. Hence, her status would be only 3 under TFR, not more than 3. The next important term which was mentioned in the article is National Family Health Survey. It is a large-scale, multi-round survey conducted in a representative sample. So it is a sample survey, alright? So it is not a census. So everyone in the population is not counted, only samples are taken of households throughout India. So it is a household level based, it is not an individual level based survey. It comes under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Of course, by the name default, it is under this ministry. And along with this ministry, we have International Institute of Population Sciences, which is serving as a nodal agency in order to conduct this survey. Finally, it provides for an indicator of tracking 30 sustainable development goals Well, broadly, we have 17 goals under which we have different categories, and among them, we are taking 30 to be achieved by 2030 year. The next one being your maternal mortality rate. When it comes to the definition, it is a number. Okay, so it is a numerical thing of resident maternal death within 42 days, not beyond that. So if a woman is dying after 6 months of a childbirth, that will not be counted as maternal mortality rate. The causes include pregnancy termination due to complications, childbirth, and puerperium. The puerperium means that de-dilation of women's genital parts after the childbirth. So, if one or the other causes among these are the reason for the maternal mortality, it would be counted under MMR. The data is limited to a specified geographic area and divided by the total resident live births of the same geography area for a specific time period. Again, annual basis. Although we can also take it as quarterly and half yearly basis, but in normal parlance, we take it at the annual basis. Moving to the next term, it was UNFPA. It is a United Nations agency working for sexual and reproductive health. And the objective of this agency is to deliver a world where every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every young person's potential is fulfilled. So basically, they are talking about overall health of child and mother. It covers 150 nations. All nations are not covered under this, because of course there are nations like Scandinavian nations which are very high on their social parameters, so external help is not required by those nations. The focus area under this agency would be childbirth, maternal health, modern contraceptives, training of health workers. Of course, in India it includes your ANM, Asha Behna, and others. It also includes gender based violence, female genital mutilations, and of course child marriages. Apart from these, there are other issues which are covered by this agency, and the basic thing which they do is they provide funds and awareness to the people in order to capture their goals. Now, after going through important terms of these articles, let us see what are the important takeaways which we can see in the article itself and what are the facts which we can learn from. The first one being the TFR, which we have already discussed, is around 2.2 or close to 2.2, and India would achieve 2.1 replacement rate very soon. Replacement rate here means that if there are two parents, father and mother, they have two children. So after the death of parents, total people on this planet would be 2. So this is known as replacement rate, 2 replacing 2. And this is how a population of a nation is stabilized. Any TFR which is less than 2.1, let's say the TFR of a place is 1.5. It means that the population is on the downward trend. The population is at the negative growth. When it comes to the MMR, it fell from 327 in 1999 to 113 in 2006. Just 17 years. See the kind of downfall which we have observed. It is around 214 points, which is incredible. And this survey is based on the sample registration survey, so it is totally authentic one. When it comes to the other data, 26.8% of women in India aged between 20 to 24 are married before they turn 18. All these data are useful for your Indian society questions. So if you do not have access to these data, I would suggest you to write it down right now. Next being that girls at the age of 15 to 19, among them 22.2% had an unmet need of contraception based on your National Family Health Survey 4. And imagine if they do not have the access to these contraceptives, there is a chance of population boom, and which is not good for a nation like India where resources are becoming scarce by the day. Next being that India recently has slipped 28 places to the rank of 140 among 156 countries, becoming the third worst performer in South Asia under the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report 2021. This kind of reports are very good for writing your fair introduction in the mains examination. If you start by writing these reports, you will catch the attention of the examiner, who will definitely pay you good mark. And lastly, the recent National Family Health Survey 5. Well, by now we have conducted 5 surveys under this initiative. As per this survey, contraceptive prevalence has improved in most of the state, not all of the state, just most of the state. Well, this is a positive sign. So if the question is in the tone of positivity, you can use these kind of data as well. Now, after going through all the fact checks and positives and negatives as far as data is concerned, now let us see what are the issues which are faced by the women in India when it comes to sexual and reproductive health rights. Well, I've listed down about 12 important issues. You can add n number of issues which come to your mind. So let us see all these issues one by one. The first and the foremost issue, which is very common and quoted by every expert, even in the editorials, is the poor education level among women. So once a woman is not very well educated, she will not be able to take empowered and learned decisions. And because of this, what they do is they go by the social trend. So if society is saying that there should be more number of children, she will go by that. And her intellectual ability will not kickstart in order to say that she should avoid larger number of children. The second being your poor sexual education and empowerment. So women in India, especially the women in the rural areas, do not have sexual education. So they do not have that much ability to plan their family. So even if the elders in the family, especially their mother-in-law and others, says that they should bear the child as soon as possible after the marriage and do not take the chance of giving any gap between the children, she will follow that. And this is because of the lack of poor education and empowerment. Third one being that growing population momentum leaves limited room for the government to provide best services. Now what does it mean? Let's say there are 40 crore women in the country. I'm just taking a hypothetical example. And out of these 40 crore, there are 10 crore women who are likely to get pregnant and bear a child. Now, let's say in the next 10 years, government is ready with all the infrastructure to take care of these 10 crore women. But in the next 10 years, the population momentum is so high that by the time we reach to serve 10 crore, the population increased to 15 crore women who will bear the child. Now the rest 5 crore will bear the poor health services in the country, and this is what we are observing in the last 6 decades. That whatever government is doing is far behind than what is required by the population. Now one may argue that government can push up to control 15 crore of the population. Is it possible given the conditions we have? Is it possible given the infrastructure, the economy, the GDP we have? No. We are a developing country and we have resource limitations. The fourth point being that the NCRB data shows higher rise of domestic crimes and violence against the female gender. And this is one of the reasons why the female gender is not able to take a learned decisions and productive decisions when it comes to her own physical needs and rights. The sixth point being your limited freedom on physical right. Well, a female in India does not have that much of freedom to decide what she wear, what she talk, how she look, what should be her physical appearance. All those reasons are actually making female gender more sensitive towards their social status. And once they get this mental image that they are being subdued, they are being subjugated under the social norms, they will lose their power to make their own lives decision. Seventh one being, of course, the emotional stigma which comes with the early pregnancy and premature birth. So younger women or a teenager woman or a teenager girl who bear a child, of course, will go through a mental trauma while raising that child. And this trauma is repeated multiple times, and this is the reason why they lose their right on their reproductive habits. The next being your unwanted girl child issue and the son meta preference. It was mentioned in the economic survey 2-3 years ago. And because of this unwanted girl child and son meta preference, there have been a rise of 10 to 15% more people in India. Because social status says that a family should have more number of male child. And in order to demand that, what they end up having is more number of girl child. So these girl child are somehow seen as unwanted girl child in the society, and that of course leaves little room for them to empower more. Next being, of course, your socially unacceptable norms towards the girl child, that if you have more number of girl child, you will face more dowry pressure in the future. We have coercive methods like one child or the two child policy, which are almost counterproductive. Take the case of 1970s or 1980s, when despite too much of government interference, there was a population boom in the country and population growth was about 25%. Next being your limited success on family planning, measures like contraceptive awareness and etc. Well, the government schemes, of course, are very limited in their approach and in their targets. And because of this limited targeting approach, they end up getting lesser achievement than what they were planning to. And last one being your limited health infrastructure, of course, because lesser number of institutional deliveries will increase the chances of maternal mortality rate in the country. And once the maternal mortality rate is high, we will never have a good population control, and of course we will have higher total fertility rate. So it is more like a cycle of a cause and effect relationship. Now, after doing all these issues, let us see what are the possible way forward. What should we do then? Well, the first one being your target based and bottom up approach. So let's start with the villages itself and target those states and those districts which have very high prevalence of TFR and MMR. Next being your population related sex education right from the school education. So all children in the school should be taught about how to control population, and by the time they reach 11th or 12th grade, they should be provided all relevant information on the contraceptives and family planning. The girls should be empowered through the use of education, health, skill development and entrepreneurship. Well, these points are not limited to this question. These points can be used on multiple grounds in your paper 1, 2, 3 and in fact your paper 4 apart from what you are using in the essay paper. We can also go for right based approach on information to health. It means that right to information on health should be part of a daily routine. Every woman across the nation should have this right that by the time she becomes eligible for marriage, she should have all the relevant information on family planning, reproductions, and of course your sexual rights. Next being your empowering women through the schemes like Beti Bachao Beti Padhao, Ayushman Bharat, Universal Immunization, Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan and many others. It means that these schemes should be revamped and more target based. Next being your mass awareness through programs like Mahila Panchayats. So Mahila Panchayats could be organized on monthly basis, maybe on fortnightly basis, where females across these villages can come together, sit together, health workers, doctors can come at the same place, they can talk to each other, they can resolve each other's issue. There could be a question and answer sessions in order to make them more empowered and informed. And the last one being the skill development to health activists and also taking help from NGO and civil society. With this now I'll leave you with the important question. Read this question and if possible write the answer on your own. I will give you just important glimpse of the question. The question says how far. Now how far means you have to write both pros and cons, but do not write these words in the heading. Change the heading according to your need. Do you agree that India's population stability is a matter of concern given lack of sexual and reproductive rights of women? Analyze. Now, there are 2 points. First of all, population stability, and second is rights to the women. Now, of course, I have mentioned many of the issues. You can mention these issues, but the question is how far. So after mentioning those issues and the way forward, you will also have to write certain other points where you have to say that apart from the sexual and reproductive rights of a woman, there are many other reasons which are causing the issues to the population stability in India, and that could be lack of health infrastructure, social structure, and many other points. It means you have to go beyond the lack of sexual and reproductive right of women. With this, now I'll take you to the next article for the day. This article was published on page 3 of Delhi edition in the newspaper, and it talks about the recent move taken by the government of Delhi, under which they have opened their own genome sequencing lab. The context says the Chief Minister of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, has inaugurated the SARS-CoV-2 genome sequencing facility at Lok Nayak Hospital, which is a government hospital, It will help in timely identification of COVID-19 variants and will aid on the strategies to counter them. Now, apart from this article and its context, what is more important for us to understand that what is genome sequencing, how it is created, and what are the basic benefits of genome sequencing for human beings. Apart from this, we will also look into some of the genome related projects both at India and as well as the international stage. So let us begin with what this is all about. Well, genome sequencing means revealing the order of bases which are present in the entire genome of an organism, and what is the bases present in them in the form of adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine, which also makes up the organism's DNA. So we have to know that what is the exact order of these four bases in our DNA. Now, when it comes to what is genome is all about, well, a genome is organism's complete set of genetic instructions. And every human being, they have a separate set of DNA and separate set of sequencing, which is important to study for various benefits and of course the treatment of human beings. But apart from humans themselves, we also require genome sequencing for other flora and fauna. We study animals, we study plants and their sequencing in order to understand how they have evolved and what are the diseases faced by them and how these diseases could be cured. Well, our bodies are made up of millions of cells, each with their own complete set of instructions for making use like a recipe for a body. The set of instructions is known as our genome and is made up of DNA. Each cell in the body, for example, let's say a skin cell or a liver cell, contain the same set of instructions. The instructions in our genome are made up of DNA. Within the DNA is a unique chemical code that guides our growth, development, and health. This code is determined by the order of four nucleotide bases that make up the DNA that we have already discussed as A, C, G, and T for short. The DNA has a twisted structure, as you can see in this figure. This is the twisted structure, and this structure is in the shape of double helix. A single strand of DNA are coiled up into structure called chromosomes, and chromosomes are located in the nucleus of each cell. Within a chromosome, sections of DNA are read together to form genes. And genes control different characteristics such as eye color, height, color of our skin, and many others. All living things have a unique genome. So as I said, plants, animals, humans, they have their respective genome. And human genome is made up of 23 chromosome pairs with a total of about 3 billion DNA pairs. Under the genome sequencing, scientists study about the structure of DNA and how the protein bases are situated on this DNA. When it comes to that, why genome sequencing is important, why government of Delhi or why government of any other place open such kind of laboratories? Well, genome sequencing help us to find the gene much more easily and quickly, as it contains the clues about where genes are. It also helps us to understand how the genome as a whole works. So how this works as an entire machine. So if you want to study how a mobile phone, laptop, or even your car functions, you have to study the micro parts of that instrument. It also helps us in studying the parts of genome outside the gene itself. This includes the regulatory regions that control how genes are turned on and off. It also helps us to understand the diseases, including genotyping of specific viruses, like we are studying for the current SARS-CoV-2, and it is studied to provide an appropriate treatment. And apart from the treatment, it is also help in identification of the mutations, like we are seeing the present case of Delta plus variant. So this is also important in the case of genome sequencing. Finally, it also helps in understanding the design of medication. So now we have genome-based medicines which are specific to a particular person, and it also helps in accurate prediction of their effects on human beings. And lastly, it also helps in the evolution of a human being or maybe any other organism much more accurately. So it can tell us the history of humankind, that how we have evolved from the apes to the current situation. Now we come to the important projects which are undertaken for genome sequencing in India and abroad. The first one being, of course, your Human Genome Project, after which we have Indigene Program and Genome India Program. Human Genome Project, it was also asked by UPSC in its mains examination previously in the previous pattern. It is part of the international research effort to determine the DNA sequence of the entire human genome. It started in 1990, ended in 2003, and the finding of this project has shown the ability of human being to read nature's complete genetic blueprint for building a human being, that how human being has evolved to the position they are today. This project was undertaken by National Institute of Health, United States, and the Department of Energy, United States. So, after this project, India came up with its own one. It includes your Indigene projects. It was undertaken for the genome sequencing of thousands of Indian individuals representing diverse ethnic group. Well, this is a keyword. The second one is that it is funded by CSIR India under the Ministry of Science and Technology. The objective of the scheme is to provide a pilot data set. So it will provide a data set to enable genetic epidemiology of carrier genetic diseases towards enabling affordable career screening approaches in India. The finding of the report says that India has about 32% of the genetic variation when we compare it to the global genomes. Now, the next project is Genome India project. You should know the difference between both these projects. This is India's gene mapping project, described as the first scratching of the surface of the vast genetic diversity of India. Now, previously what we have concluded that India has 32% of genetic variation. Now, this project will study that 32% of variation. It will try to find the form of grid after collecting 10,000. So the sampling here is fixed. In the previous case, it was not fixed. Here, the sample is fixed at 10,000, which will represent the entire Indian genome. This project is taken by the Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Sciences. Here, CSIR is not involved. Secondly, it will enable new efficiency in healthcare, medicine, and life sciences. These three were not included in the previous project. However, this project also raises the concern pertaining to the medical ethics, political misuse. Because once people know about how a genetic makeup of a particular tribe, of a particular race, or a particular people in India is different from the other, this information can be misused by the different authorities and the institutions for their own self-benefits. And lastly, this project involves 20 leading institutions. However, in the previous one, there was only CSIR. So these are the basic differences which you should know in order to make a difference in these different projects. With this, now I'll leave you to the important question attached to this article. So read this question carefully and answer in the comment box. This article was published on page 1 of the Delhi edition in the newspaper. And this article is actually talking about a very important move which was taken up by the central government under the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The article titled as "The Heavyweight Shown the Door as PM Modi Rejig's Cabinet." The heavyweight here includes the old stalwarts who were part of the previous or the erstwhile cabinet, which include your Ravi Shankar Prasad, Dr. Harshvardhan, and many others. The context of the article says that Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has reshuffled the cabinet and included some young faces as ministers in the central government. According to many experts, this step has brought the youth ideology in executive sphere. So now we will have younger people in the politics. But the real issue is, young in politics means 50 plus. Jokes apart. Well, the importance of this article is not about who has become a minister or what, but it is important to understand what cabinet is all about and how the cabinet is actually reshuffled. For that, we have to go into the revision mode and go through the important constitutional provisions related to the cabinet. So let us see what we will study today. We will study about the cabinet form of government in India, both central and the state. We will also look into the Article 74 and 75, and lastly, we will look into the composition of Council of Ministers in India. Now, when it comes to the salient features of the cabinet form of the government, well, India has a dual executives, one being your real executive, and we have nominal executive. So nominal is your president, real is your prime minister. The party with the greatest representation forms the government. We have majority rule principle. We have dual membership. So a minister are member of both legislature and the executive, plus a minister can come from either house of the parliament, and even if he or she is not a member of the parliament, they can become a minister for the period of 6 months. All the council of ministers, including the cabinet, have collective responsibility, including your prime minister and his council of ministers, towards Lok Sabha, not Rajya Sabha, because Rajya Sabha is a permanent house and they do not have a direct representation through first past the post election process. The word cabinet is nowhere mentioned in the constitution except Article 352, which deals with the provision of national emergency. So apart from cabinet, the Council of Ministers have more and more representation when it comes to the Constitution of India. So let us see what it is all about. Article 74 says that there shall be a Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister at the head to aid and advise the President. As I said, Prime Minister is a real executive, so his entire team would aid and advise the President, who shall, in the exercise of his function, act in according with the such advice. So President have to. See, earlier there was a word must which was replaced by shall. So President shall act according to this advice. And this advice which is given by the Council of Ministers is not subjected to the judicial scrutiny. Article 75 is actually the main article, and it talks about the appointment and says that Prime Ministers shall be appointed by the President, because Prime Minister is also part of your Council of Ministers, including Cabinet. So he should be appointed by the President, and other minister shall be appointed by President on the advice of Prime Minister. And this is the reason why we are saying that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reshuffled the Cabinet. So Prime Minister has actually advised the President Ramnath Kovind that he wants to reshuffle, remove some, add some. When it comes to this strength, the total number of ministers including the Prime Minister, so this is a keyword. UPSC can ask you excluding the Prime Minister. Alright, so including the Prime Minister shall not, see, they have repeatedly used the word shall. You should be mindful of that. And this should not increase the 50% of the strength of Lok Sabha. This was added by 91st Constitution Amendment in 2003. The important thing here is that you should do the maths. That's what is the 15% of Lok Sabha's strength. As of now, Lok Sabha include how many members? Well, you should know that. The tenure of the Council of Ministers, it says that minister shall hold the office during the pleasure of the President. It does not mean that President can wake up any morning and he can just dissolve the Lok Sabha. As far as there are certain rules which are met, President will not dissolve or will not remove a Council of Ministers from the Lok Sabha. When it comes to the composition of Council of Ministers, first of all, it includes your Cabinet Minister. As I've said, Cabinet Minister has been used only once in the Constitution. So your focus should be on the Council of Ministers rather than the Cabinet. The Cabinet Minister are head of important ministries. Now, what is this important? It is not as of clear. These important ministries could be Home, Defense, Finance, External Affairs, and apart from that, they play an important role in deciding major policies. So whenever we have cabinet meetings, we have cabinet committees, you'll find that these members are the one who take the major decisions. After the cabinet, we have Minister of State, who are attached to the cabinet ministers, and they work under the guidance of the cabinet minister. However, some of them can also be given the independent charge, and that is how we end up listening like Mr. X is a member of state independent charge. Minister of State are not the members of the cabinet, and they do not attend the cabinet meetings unless they are specifically invited. And lastly, we have deputy ministers. They do not have any independent charge. They are attached to the cabinet ministers or the minister of the state, and they simply assist them on various parameters. They are not the member of the cabinet, and they do not even attend their meetings, and they are not even invited also. And lastly, we have parliamentary secretaries, which were in the news for various reasons 2-3 years back. And they are actually the members of the last category of Council of Ministers. It is not compulsory to have parliamentary secretaries at all. They have no department under their control. They are attached to the senior ministers and they assist in their discharge of parliamentary duties. So one way or the other, the three categories or the last three categories more or less have the same function of assisting or assistance given to their ministers or the senior ministers. With this, now I'll take you to the important question attached to this article. So read this question carefully and answer in the comment box. With this, now we move to the last article or the scheme of the day. So now we come to the last part of today's discussion, which is scheme of the day. In the scheme of the day, we will look into the Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, in which we will look into the different aspects of the scheme and how it actually functions in India. The scheme MUDRA, also known as Micro Units Development and Refinance Agency. So MUDRA is itself is an agency. It's an institution. So this agency provides for, the name itself speaks, units development. Which units? The micro units. Micro unit development and their refinancing. So the objective of the scheme is itself there in the name of the scheme. MUDRA is a NBFC, non-banking finance company, and it comes under the different regulatory mechanism altogether. You must have learned this in the classes taken by Baswa sir about the benefits, provisions, functionings and regulations of the NBFCs. So MUDRA is one of the NBFCs, and NBFCs in India are regulated by different regulators based on the activity which they take. So as an NBFC, MUDRA provides refinance support to banks, microfinance institutions for lending to the micro units. So once a refinancing is provided to these banks and MFIs, that money cannot be spent on any other activity apart from the funding to the micro units. And these micro units should be under specific headings. Plus, they should be under the requirement of rupees 10 lakh. So the loan cannot be extended beyond 10 lakh. A person who is working in a micro unit cannot ask for a loan beyond 10 lakh. Apart from this, it also functions for supporting the development of micro enterprises in India. And along with these two objectives, the funding needs and classification under this scheme is based on three different aspects. If your requirement is up to 50,000, you will be under the Sishu category. If you are up to 5 lakh, you will be under the Kishore category. And if you are asking for a loan up to 10 lakh, above 5 lakh, you will be under the Tarun classification. This classification is based on the needs of a specific micro units for their respective purposes. In this case, you should also know that there is a difference between what is refinancing and what is financing. So when a bank is giving money to the enterprises under Sishu, Kishore and Tarun, that is financing. But when a bank itself is getting a finance from the MUDRA scheme, that is known as refinancing. So it is like financing a bank's finance. So that is your refinance. Re means again. When it comes to the loans, there are certain activities for which it is easily available. This list is not limited or non-exhaustive. There are n number of other activities for which loan can be provided. This include your businesses for vendors, traders, shopkeepers and other service sector activities. So UPSC can ask questions like this, that MUDRA scheme is not including, or MUDRA scheme does not include service sector activities. This include working capital loans through MUDRA cards, equipment finance for micro units, let's say small machinery or tools or something like that. Transport vehicle loans, let's say there is a delivery agency and they want to buy 5 motorcycles. So they can approach banks under the MUDRA Yojana and they can avail the funding. There are two important aspects for this scheme, which is very important. First, that all loans are collateral free. So a person who is availing a loan to buy 5 motorcycles will not have to show some collateral papers like properties or wealth assets or something like that. Secondly, a MUDRA debit card is provided in order to take the money out of bank without any hassle. And the MUDRA debit card which is provided under this scheme looks something like this. It is a RuPay debit card. So the payment mediator would be your RuPay. This would be a debit card, not a credit card. And it will have a bank logo on the right upper side, the MUDRA scheme logo on this side, and the details of a particular customer who is availing this loan. The one who is holding this card cannot withdraw amount more than the loan amount. So if the loan amount is 5 lakh rupees, no fund beyond this would be provided to that particular person. With this under discussion, now we finally move to the question of the day.